preparing to live stream. This meeting is being live streamed. I'll tell you when it starts.
Yeah.
Just setting up your meeting for YouTube. Right, I think we're live. We are live, Chris. So just welcome everyone. If you can hear us and everything's okay, just let us know in the chat. And Chris, can I quickly send you the link so that you can post it and we'll get as many people on this stream as possible?
Yeah, sure. On my sort of Facebook page.
Yeah, I'm going to send it to you on your Facebook.
Okay.
And here we go.
Okay, got that. So I'll copy that.
Live now. Right, I'm just going to open up YouTube on my phone just to make sure that the sound is okay, because it's showing me that the sound is. I'm sure it's okay. I'll just quickly have a little look. Yes, it's working. It's perfect. That's brilliant, Chris. So I think we're good to go.
Wonderful. Okay, well, break a leg. Thanks very much for having me on, Jen. Let's have some fun.
You're welcome. So let me just see if anyone's, yeah, we've got Yukari. Yukari, can you share this, darling? And we'll try to get as many people on this live stream as possible. So welcome, Chris Paradox. It's been a while since we connected, and quite a lot has been going on in your life since we last connected. Can you just share with us, give us a little bit of a sort of breakdown of like the shifts and the transformations that you've been through?
I certainly can. Wow, you're professional, Jen. You're good at this, aren't you? That was so crisp and clear.
Yeah.
And
I think I've channeled my inner TV guru.
You totally did. Because the thing is, I was busy posting the link while you said that, so I didn't see you on screen. I just heard you, and I thought, wow, I'm on the BBC or something. What's going on?
I'm like the British Buggering Corporation all of a sudden.
Okay, it's a bit early on in the show for us to go there. But
all right, we've got to talk in CODE when it comes to, do you know what I mean? I don't want to lose this, so we'll just be clever.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right, Mr. Paradox. So,
okay.
Fill us in.
Yeah, you would fill you in. Okay, so as I was saying to you off air, my last relationship, and sometimes I think, yeah, my last relationship ever. Obviously that's as a kind of joke, but also could be true. My last relationship ended. I might tell you the story of the relationship because it's its own interesting, revealing, teaching story.
We're all ears, Chris.
We're all ears. Okay, I'll tell you. I'll circle back to that because I just want to give the basic thing.
All right.
So when it ended, I had that experience that many people have had, where the relationship is over, and all of a sudden you realise that. When I went into the relationship, I was completely dedicated to God. I was all about God as love, basically. God is love, love is God. So I was completely dedicated to love, student and servant of love, practicing the way of mastery, the way of the heart, exquisite channel teaching by Jeshua. And I was flying. And the relationship seemed to be a manifestation of that state. So, when you're really in a high manifestation state, you talk to interesting people of the opposite sex that you might have a relationship with. And that's what I seemed to do, and really went into it full on as a, lifetime thing. And it turned out that, and this is totally my responsibility, I have a saying, it's the golden rule, everything under my skin is mine. If everybody just took responsibility for whatever they were feeling and thinking, there would be no conflict in the world whatsoever. It's projection and blame and judgment and making someone else responsible for the way you feel that causes all the suffering. So everything under my skin is mine. And so it was totally my responsibility because I saw the signs early on. This is another thing people will recognize. When you really fancy someone and in the first few dates, you see red flags that it's not going to work, and you ignore them because you fancy them so much. I did that. And the red flags were a Olympic level jealousy. I've had jealous girlfriends before, but not to this level. And it was actually like a soap opera because I just couldn't believe that she was seriously upset at the things she was upset about. Just me doing my show, me answering a post on Facebook from a woman, just any contact with a woman, she'd go ballistic. So I had this kind of really weird, have I brought this to me to, yeah, I basically said, okay, I brought this relationship to me to bring up my wounded child, to heal all my wounds. I know that's what relationships about. So I was I was into it. I just took it as, okay, this is to bring up my stuff. And if I react to her, that shows I'm still wounded and I need to heal. All reaction comes from wounds. When we are true selves, when we're eternal, Satchitananda bliss, you never react to what somebody else does or says. You hear it, you observe it, and then you choose how you act. You don't react from a wound. And I did plenty of times react from a wound and sometimes not react. So I was kind of growing in the relationship. And by the time it comes to the end, the joke is I've tried to break up with her about 5 times. And she basically, every time I tried to break up with her, she would wake up from her jealousy and say, yes, it's crazy. It's ruined so many relationships. I know it's terrible. I know where it comes from. I'm sorry. And I think, okay, well, she sees it now. We can make it work. And then she would just test her about some jealousy. And, like I said, 5 times. So I should have done it earlier. But the joke is she ghosted me. She came to live with me in Portugal. And the same problems happened, the same jealousy, ridiculous. Funny stories, I'll tell you, we were like around the festival campfire. And then she said, look, I'm going to go and stay in an Airbnb for a couple of weeks just to give us a break. And she did that, and she never came back. And then she disappeared, and I didn't know where she was. And she hacked my email account. She used to hack my Facebook and my email to see if I'm talking to women all the time. And so she hacked my main email account, so I can't actually get into it anymore. But to be honest, she did me a favor, because I should have seen the red flags, and when I broke up with her, I should have taken her back. So she did me a massive favor, and I laughed to myself, because I thought, after all that's happened, she left me. That was a God thing. You know what I mean? It was like there you go. You didn't do it, so now it's done. Yeah. And I so realized how I'd been fooling myself. I mean, oh my God, Jen, the ego is so subtle. All of my path, the way of mastery, is about how the ego's fear of awakening. Because when you awaken, your ego isn't in charge anymore. So it's terror to the ego, it's death. So pretty much everything that stops everyone awakening is their ego rationalizing and justifying its fear of dying and getting them to make excuses and be distracted and do stupid things that stop their healing and awakening. That's the only block we have to understand, is that your ego is terrified of death. So it doesn't want you to awaken. So it will send you down dead ends. It will make you not practice. It will make you think you're enlightened when you're not. It will just do all sorts of things. Anyway, I saw how my ego would use my relationship to make me think that I was healing and awakening in my relationship. And I was a little bit. I wasn't totally not. But actually, I basically, every man and every woman, but every man psychologically looks for his mother's love in his female partner. And women look for their dad's love. Jung called it anima and animus. We have a part, wounded child kind of thing, that never got the unconditional love that all children deserve and get from God. And we look for it in our parents, obviously. And no parent can give the unconditional love of God, because their parents didn't give it to them, and their parents didn't give it to them. So we don't know how to love unconditionally. So we're always let down by our parents. So when we grow up, we're looking for the idealized parents to give us the romantic love that the parent of that sex never gave us, basically. And I was fully aware of this, and and this is the joke. I was fully aware of this when I went into the relationship, but I still did it. And in my path, there's a very simple understanding: the world can't make you happy. Nothing outside of yourself can make you happy. It's your job to make yourself happy. Happiness is a choice. It comes from within. Basically, connecting with your source, connecting with Creator, being one with the oneness is what makes you happy. And none of the substitutes, money, drugs, sex, power, money, fame, they all seem to bring us love, but they're all hollow and empty in the end, and nothing can be. So I knew that. And so the only purpose of relationship is to share your happiness. It's not to get the other person to make you happy, it's to share your happiness. So that's what I thought I was doing and was doing to some degree, but actually I was still, my wounded child was still seeking my mother's love in my girlfriend. And that is, out of alignment with my path. And when I woke up, I realized I'd been doing that. Because in my path is that the only relationship that really has value is your relationship with your creator, with spirit. That's the only one that matters, because when you get that right, all your other relationships work magically, because you've got the whole universe behind you, because you're living the life you were born to live. We're all born to live part of the grand play of life, and we all have the capabilities to do magnificent things. But when we try to get love from outside of ourselves, we don't fully love and accept ourselves unconditionally, and we seek love outside, we suffer. And the awakening, 6 months later, hardcore practice, understanding. The teaching I have is just perfection. I think it's the highest spiritual teaching of all time. It's Jesus basically teaching unconditional love and forgiveness of self and all others. So
what is the teaching?
It's called The Way of Mastery. It's called The Way of Mastery by Shanti Christo Foundation, and it was channeled in the mid-1990s through a guy who then was called John Mark Hammer. Now he goes by the name of JM, and it was channeled by Jeshua Ben Joseph, which is the Arabic name for Christ. And it includes Mary and Mary Magdalene, and believe all you have to do is read it, and you know it's absolutely the truth.
What's it called?
The Way of Mastery.
All right, I'll write that in the chat, because I think maybe people would like to check that out. The Way of Mastery,
Mastery. And there's 3 books in it, Jen. The first book is called The Way of the Heart. The second one is called The Way of Transformation. And the third one is called The Way of Knowing. And like I say, they are as good as the Diamond Sutra, any Dzogchen, anything Zen. I've read them all. This is the best spiritual teaching I've ever come across. And 6 months of hardcore practice and a 40-day water fast. And I awoke on day 17 and have been awake for about 3 weeks. And I know how weird that is to say, because what do you mean? Awake people don't say they're awake. What do you mean you're awake? And I hear you, I understand. I don't expect anyone to believe me. All I know is that my internal experience is that God's love shines in me all the time. And I'm always happy. Nothing bothers me. I never react. I found peace. So whether you call that awake or not, I call it awake. And I see now that my body is something I created, and I'm fearless. I'm here to do God's will. I'm here to help the unification, the atonement. That's all I care about, is everybody waking up and us returning home to heaven. We've never left heaven, is the truth, and that's what it means to awake, is to realize, oh my God, this moment now is heaven and always has been. And I've been thinking about finding heaven out there when it's just here all the time.
Wow, that is incredible wisdom that you've shared. And I totally get what you're saying, because I don't know if you know much about my story, but I had a very, very powerful spiritual awakening when I was 21 on top of a Himalayan mountain. And I was chanting the mantra Om Namah Shivaya. And I chanted it for about 30,000 times. And we trekked up this mountain, and we got to the top of the mountain, and I was guided to be, to be on my own. So I left the group, and I went to the edge of the mountain, and I was like looking up, and it was pitch black. And there was all stars in the sky, and I was going, Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namah Shivaya. And then all of a sudden, this flash of light appeared in the sky, and my third eye completely and utterly blasted open, and I went into full and absolute God consciousness. I saw God's face. I realized that God is not this horrendous man that my religion had told me about with a grey beard sitting on a cloud, which I'd always deeply rejected. And I rejected Catholicism, I rejected Christianity, I rejected all of it because of this notion. And I stared God in the face, and I was like, God is eternal love, is the frequency of love, is creation energy. And my soul was born in that ocean of love. My soul will return to that ocean of love. And my job while I'm incarnated is to be permanently anchored in that consciousness, in God consciousness. I realized that as my third eye blasted open, I realized that I was in the presence of all these ascended beings who were like celebrating. They were like, they're the miraculous. They were like, oh my God, because it's no mean feat for one person to truly, truly awaken out of the Maya. It's probably the hardest aspect of our soul's evolutionary journey is awakening within this particular matrix structure. And so I just felt it's just like this huge celebration. I felt Bob Marley, I felt John Lennon, I felt Mother Mary, I felt Yeshua, Archangel Michael, and they were all just there with their maracas going, oh, woohoo, do you know what I mean? And And then I had this
I heard
experience.
they like a bit of drum and bass.
Yeah, yeah,
Like...
no, like poof, poof. And then had this experience, and then the light kind of like entered into my being, and then it came down into my sacral chakra, and that's where I'd stored all my fear. Being a very sort of intelligent, deeply philosophical soul, I thought very deeply about life, and I really believed I was ego separate. Like I believed I didn't belong. I believed that I wasn't safe, and I genuinely had bought into this egoic identity. And so with that, all of the fear and all the fear that had basically accumulated within my sacral area, within my tummy area. So as the light met that, I just started crying and releasing of just like, it wasn't real. Only God is real. Fear isn't real. It's just only God is real. And it was just like all of these like lifetimes and lifetimes of fear like left my system. And I realized that this is what every soul is searching for, that I kind of like had arrived at that plateau that every single soul is reaching for. And that is to the understanding that God is love, God is eternal love, and God is all that is. And everything else is an absolute illusion. So I woke up the next morning, and then it was like I heard the angels were just singing to me, and they were singing to me about the nature of reality. And they were telling me about, prior to my experience, the word eternity, didn't have really a clue about it. Love, didn't really know, apart from love my mum. I didn't have any clue about timelessness, had no clue what forever meant, had absolutely no comprehension of what infinity meant. But suddenly, in this consciousness, I understood deeply and implicitly eternity. I understood deeply and implicitly what love is. Love as a code, love as a vibration, love as the force of the universe. And so all day, lasted longer than the day, but on that first day, the angels, I was just getting continuous downloads. And then it just triggered my Kundalini, and my Kundalini went off. And then I started getting all of the ecstatic bliss rushes up and down my spine. And then they'd be like, my team would be like, right, just go and get the Bhagavad Gita. I'd open up the Bhagavad Gita, and it would be literally word for word what they had just transmitted into my ear. And I was like, oh, Mother of God, the heart is the sacred scripture. Why didn't they tell us that in school? But no one told us that the heart is the living scripture. Do you know what I mean? So I was like, living that reality. Yeah.
You said two things there, yeah. So the first book in the Way of Mastery is The Way of the Heart. Yeah. It's all about the heart and how to live in it. And the other thing you said is you knew intrinsically and implicitly what eternity, all these words meant when you were in that state. And the third book is called The Way of Knowing, because the understanding is that you only know reality by being it. Yeah. We think about reality. We're always thinking about reality, trying to understand it and know it, but the ego can't know it. The only way to know it is to be it, is to be one with reality, to just dissolve as a separate self and know you are everything. And that's when you know love and eternity, because you're being it. You can't know it with this.
That's right. And so I had this direct experience, and then that basically went into a 6-month samadhic experience, and it just didn't stop. I was like, is this ever going to stop? I am just like constantly in this higher state of bliss, and I was like constantly getting angelic downloads and constantly getting Kundalini rushes, and I like woke up every day and I was like, it's just not going to stop. It's just like I'm just like in this state of consciousness. Do you know what I mean? But then I stayed in India for 6 months, and then I came back to the UK, and it was like when I got back into the kind of like the pattern, the grid that is the UK, I had this experience of landing. So in India, I was like flying in the higher dimensional realms. But then when I got back, but I was very grounded because I got a load of Capricorn in my chart. So super, super, super grounded. No one ever questioned my sanity throughout my whole enlightenment experience. Do you know what I mean? Because I'm so grounded. So I got back to the UK, and it was just like, I just sort of gently landed. And then it was like stage 2 of the awakening. And that was then I had this experience of like the light. It's like when we have this true enlightenment experience, our consciousness is so locked into the programming of the third dimension and all the ancestral wounds that when we have this light, it's like this light enters into like a school hall. And in that school hall, there's so much clutter, there's so much mess, there's so much shit that you've got to deal with. And so when I got back to the UK, I then had to go through moving through the trauma, the ancestral trauma, but it had to go through my body. I couldn't bypass it with that experience. So that was my experience. And, you know, but I never ever came out of that exalted state until that lasted about 15 years. But then I started hanging around with the wrong group of people who were fake enlightened people. So I see it like butterflies and caterpillars. So they were a bunch of caterpillars that were pretending to be butterflies. And I was a total butterfly. And I was like, but because I was in angelic consciousness, I didn't doubt their integrity. But hanging out with them brought me a little bit out because of all their programming and the fact that I was so invested. You know all these people that I'm talking about, Chris, anyway, that brought me out of my alignment. And then I met Balanced View, did Balanced View, and then boom, I had another major ascension experience. So that's my, you know, little experiences of what have you. But so I really know what you're talking about, Chris.
It sounds like it, yeah.
Yeah.
And I would say that I've had similar experiences a few times in my 54 years, granddad. Yeah, I've experienced landing, I've experienced crashing into the ground.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like both.
Yeah.
What feels different about this one is that it was so deliberate and purposeful. So in all the other experiences, I fell into it. You know, like you're up a mountain, or I went to live under a tree in a park, or I lost my leg, or something dramatic happened, and then I fell into that state and stayed in it for various lengths of times. This time around, what's different is that I've literally been walking a very specific journey with very specific signposts to a place that Jeshua calls freedom. You know, freedom from reactivity and fear, basically, and suffering. And it was so deliberate, and I've been studying for 4 years, really looking at the path, and it just kind of happened exactly as it was supposed to. And this time, not really much of the angelic downloads, although there was a little one on the fast. It's more been this kind of I was saying last night that I realized that I have two types of conversations in my head. One is the typical one where me as my ego is talking to me, you know, so the voice in the head, the monkey mind, that kind of conversation. But I have another kind of conversation where it's like God as love talking to God as me. So it's me talking to myself, but both are God. And then it kind of fuses together and it's just God. There is no little me anymore. And that's what this experience has been like. It's like, there's not bells and whistles except for the absolute knowing that I'm everything and everyone, and everything's perfect, everything's fine, and no one's ever been hurt, nothing could ever be hurt. It's just a peace, the peace of God that passes all understanding. That's it, basically. And so it feels different in that way because it's not bells and whistles. It's more just,
That's really beautiful. Yeah, there's and definitely I've gone into that. I mean, that was when I was 21. I'm now coming up to 48. So I've had all sort of experiences with those enlightenment codes. And I think that the most pervading experience that I have being me, Jen, is peace. Yeah. There's like
peace is number one. Peace is number one. Peace is number one.
Yeah, I was talking about that yesterday, and it's like, I did this live video and I was saying, I'm like, no, it's not very exciting, but it's everything. It's everything. It's like, that is what our soul is seeking. It's not glamorous. It doesn't sound glamorous and sexy. Oh yeah, well, I've attained eternal peace. You know what I mean?
And that's a brilliant point. And that's exactly my point, is that it doesn't sound as glamorous and sexy as angelic downloads or the light or any of that stuff. But when you actually experience it, you realize how much you've not had peace.
Yeah.
Because the general state of consciousness, we don't know it, but there's an anxiety and a restlessness and a lack vibration going on with us until we remember who we are. Until you remember we're one with God, we think we're separate. And if you think you're separate in a big universe, there is going to be fear. And it's like we don't realize how much fear is driving us until you find peace and you realize, oh my God, everything I did was because of fear. Because now that there's no fear, the level of relaxation, so it's like having a really amazing, doing 2 hours of yoga, having a really amazing massage, having a beautiful warm bath, and just and then a sauna, like of the soul. It's like the level of relaxation, mind, body, and soul that peace represents. Believe me, no one would ever look down on it. If they, and those who have will know what I'm talking about. If you've ever experienced the peace of God that passeth all understanding, it passes all understanding, and that's why it doesn't sound great, but believe me, it is.
It's everything, and I just wish I could bottle it up. And that's what I think I tried to do in all of my work, in all of my offerings, in all of my retreats and my containers. It's like I'm trying to bottle it up so that you can have an experience of that, because when I had my enlightenment experience at the top of the mountain, the very, very first thought that I had was, this is for all of my brothers and sisters. The reason why I'm having this experience is to give it away, because it's the absolute truth of the nature of reality. And that's it. Now everyone's got it. Because I've had it, I can give it away to everyone. And that is truly, truly what drives me. And I think, and that is what happens. This is the alchemy that happens when we come into self-realization, is that it's all about service to others. But within that, there is this incredible boundaries. Like I have incredible boundaries, and I will not tolerate shit on any level whatsoever. So it's kind of like you reach this level of being completely perpetually orientated to serving others, your brothers and sisters, but yet having this incredible vortex of self-love that is so solid and so anchored that no one can penetrate it. No one can get through that. Do you know what I mean?
Totally.
Oh, did that touch your heart?
I'm like I said, I'm awake, so I'm just sitting in bliss the whole time anyway, and just really loving you, just thinking, I love you, Jen.
I love you too, Chris. It's so beautiful. It's so rare. It is still rare to have truly, truly awakened souls. Do you know what I mean? It's still quite the rarity. And it's it's very healing for us to be in each other's vibration. Do you know what I mean? Because you feel like you're not alone. Because I think for me, this was 1995, I had my awakening, and it was a very, very lonely experience. Of course, I was with God and all the angels, and I wasn't lonely on that level. But when I got back to the UK, and I kind of because I had this experience of becoming like a spiritual elder. It was like I was only 21. I didn't know my ass from my elbow, but all of a sudden I was like put into this frequency of being a planetary elder, because I had that overview. I had that galactic overview, that eternal sort of overview of the soul's trajectory. Do you know what I mean? And I think it was a very lonely place, being at that level of holding energy for the collective. Do you know what I mean? And I think it's very, very healing for us to be around other very powerfully awakened beings, because it's like I don't have to shoulder it on my own somehow. We can share it. We can share this burden of being like totally awake. Do you know what I mean?
I definitely know what you mean. I'm involved in building a healing resort in central Portugal. We've got 5 hectares of amazing land. And we're building glamping fields and a chakra garden, and we're inviting healers and massage and yoga teachers and meditation teachers to come and run retreats and do work. We're growing our own food. We're going off grid, and we have a cafe and a restaurant, and it's just amazing, beautiful vision. And what I found in my tradition, it says that the more you open up and recognize yourself only as the presence of love, or only as a conduit of love, and surrender your agenda, surrender your preferences, likes, dislikes, the more you just basically surrender, you get busier and busier. And because the universe says, okay, this one is open, I can flow through this one. Creation, healing can flow through this one. And that's what I've experienced, is that I know what you mean about it's lovely to be with other awakened beings. And to be honest, I have a group on Signal called the Ministry of Mastery, where last 5 months or so I've been working with about between 15 and 20 people, basically mentoring them in this pathway, the way of the heart, the way of transformation, the way of knowing. And 4 people have kind of reached a similar awakening to myself. And so I have a group of masters. They're literally called a group of masters. So I don't actually miss that. But what I love is that I'm working with like 9 people here, all different from around the world, all in different stages of their soul journey. And what I'm realizing is that in the Christic tradition, you basically take responsibility for not just the world, but the universe. Yeah. Basically, this is a creation of my mind, as soul, as the one. And everything I experience, including COVID, for example, is something I created in order to experience my power to choose peace in the face of it, or to choose love, or basically to choose God consciousness. That's in this tradition, everything happens to wake you up and remind you that you're God. And when you're in that zone of seeing everything like that, you basically realize you're responsible for everything. There's everything that happens, I feel, oh yeah, I can, because when you're responsible for something, you can change it, you can create something new. But when you're a victim, when you say somebody else is to blame or someone else is responsible, you have no power. Right. And so when we say, I'm not responsible for what the elites are doing about COVID, we have no power to change it. So I say, oh, I invented the Illuminati satanic Balian elites in order to show, to wake myself up to the fact that there's no time to mess around. I almost swore there. There's no time to mess around. It's all about self-realization. It's all about remembering your God, because that is the only thing that can do anything about the darkness of the world. The darkness of the world, fear is the absence of love, just as darkness is the absence of light. All we have to do is shine our light of love with everyone, everywhere we go. I say all we have to do, but the answer is to just, in my tradition, it's called teach only love. There's 4 very simple axioms in the way of mastery taught by Jeshua, and I'll tell you them. And when you hear them, you'll realize everything about me and my path. Only love is real. Yeah. Love alone heals. Yeah. Bless the whole creation. Teach only love.
Oh, I love that, Chris.
Once you become a complete servant and student of love, you realize that the things that you thought might be too big for you to do, might be too much of a challenge, you realize that you can do them easily because it's not you doing it, it's God. God is doing everything. Spirit is doing everything. The one is doing everything. The central understanding in awakening is I am not the doer and the maker. It's the ego that thinks me, Chris Paradox, I'm doing all these amazing things. I'm not. God is doing them through me. And believe me, I've achieved a lot of things in my life, managing director, kids, family, married, rich, blah, blah. But I can tell you that I've not been a rock star or a billionaire, but I've had a lot of the successes in life that people dream of having when they're young, material success, all that kind of stuff, lots of experiences, and actually a bit of fame and all that as a poet. And the feeling of getting what you want as an ego, getting the things you want, winning, success, compared to the success of doing nothing because God is doing it through you. It honestly, one wheeze all over the other one. I'm trying not to swear, but beginning with P and rhyming with is all over the other one. It's like there's no comparison. I think of all the amazing things that I did and amazing experiences, and a lot of them were amazing, but compared to being able to witness God working through first of all, the presence of love, the presence of God, basically in your field, and then working through you to say things and do things and basically make their lights come on. Being able to witness that and participate in it. It's one thing to witness it, but it's actually doing it through my words and my thoughts. And it's like, it's me. God is me doing it, but doing it through me. It's so weird. There's this creator and created. And there's this dance between knowing you're the created and being humble and realizing you're just a vehicle, but also noticing you're also God doing it through you. So, and then you're like, wow, that's when you really shine, because there's no, it's the glory of humility, I call it. It's like that glorious humility of realizing you're both the vessel and the light. You're the vessel and the light, and it just depends on the moment which one you identify with more. You go from light to vessel, light to vessel, light to vessel, and they're both exquisite. And sometimes you are absolutely all two of them at the same. You're both of them at the same time, plus the thing that is nothing, in between. So you're the nothingness, you're the light, and you're the vehicle and or the vessel, and that is just orgasmic to the nth degree when you can be all three at the same time. But believe me, being one or two is absolutely perfect as well. So there's nothing to complain about.
That's really beautifully said, Chris. And I share a lot in my teachings about like what I've been shown, and that is that it's the reminder that all instruments are hollow. Like a guitar is hollow, a drum is hollow, a flute is hollow, a saxophone is hollow. And it's like, why are they hollow? They're hollow so that they can receive the grace of the divine. And so I remember sitting at the feet of Mother, Father, God, saying, I promise you I'll be empty. I'll do everything that I can to be empty. And God was like, and the moment you become empty, I will fill you up with the grace. And that has been my direct experience of life. And so in my teachings, I'm reminding everyone of how to become empty. And I obviously share about like a spiritual practice. I think that this is so important to becoming empty, is getting a handle over the egoic monkey mind. That's like number one, numero uno. Number one.
Absolutely.
Yeah, otherwise it's running the show, and the whole of the matrix has been programmed to empower that egoic narrative. And so unless you can get a handle on that and have some sort of like spiritual practice that enables you to become the observer, you are never going to attain that frequency of emptiness. But
can I say something? Yeah. So that's basically what I do. I teach. I've got 3 practices that I developed based on the way of mastery. But also, I've done like 6 Vipassanas. So I've studied the East. I've studied non-duality, and what I've done is created practices to do exactly that. Basically, to give you freedom from the monkey mind and allow you to abide as the witness, as pure awareness. And the first one is so easy. Can I take like 2 minutes to teach?
Yeah, of course. I'd love to learn. Yeah.
Beautiful. So it's called Making a Home in the Breath. And it just uses, many meditations use the breath because it just uses the fact that the breath connects us to spirit anyway. It's always there. And it's something that we can both allow to happen or have some control over. So it's just the best thing. And so when I teach this practice, I say to people, so what we're trying to do here is whenever we notice that our peace is disturbed, yeah? So when you're triggered in any way, and it doesn't have to be a big emotional trigger, but let's just say, for instance, you're frustrated or a little anxious or bored even, or just feeling lonely. Those are basically triggers. That's reactivity. That's pain coming up for healing. Basically, the best saying ever, you can't heal what you can't feel. So whereas we try to avoid being triggered, actually triggering is the way to healing, because you can't heal what you can't feel. You can only heal what comes up into your consciousness. So we have to reverse our whole attitude to being upset. We've got to see being upset as a gift from God, because it's only when we're upset, only when the wound comes up, that you can bring the light of love to it. And it's just
Very
love.
true.
Love alone heals. So what we're looking for is whenever you notice you are triggered, so in any spiritual path, but particularly this one, the first thing you have to learn to become good at is noticing your state. And so many of us are so unconscious that we spend most of our time not really present in our bodies, not really aware of the thoughts, perceptions, emotions, sensations, emotions that are going on in the body. We're in our heads, we're thinking. The monkey mind's got us. So we're not really there. And so the first thing you learn to become good at is noticing. Oh, I noticed that my monkey mind's going, or I noticed that I'm feeling sad, or I'm feeling angry, or whatever. Just noticing, no judgment, it's all fine. You just notice what's happening. And as soon as you notice that your peace is disturbed, as we call it, because our natural state is peace. So whenever we're not at peace, it's because some wound has come up for healing. And as soon as you notice, you do a simple trigger to start the practice, and it's simply to take a deep breath. And what I always say is, it doesn't matter how good a practice is if you don't do it. And most people have practices that they don't do, so they're no good. You have to have a practice that you will do a lot.
Agree.
This is why. And so notice, deep breath, nice simple trigger. Everyone can remember to take a deep breath when they notice their peace is disturbed. And then the next bit is the best bit, is that from that deep breath, obviously you have to breathe out, but you breathe out with a sigh, big sigh. And along with that sigh, so a sigh is the natural way for the body to relax. We all sigh as a way to react, so it's natural, but you're just adding a little bit of psychological and emotional relaxation to the body relaxing by just having the intention as you sigh that you're going to let go of whatever it was that disturbed your peace, just in the moment. So it's a big let go. So something's disturbed your peace, something's triggered you, you take a deep breath. So, and at the end of the out breath, and before you breathe in again, there's a natural pause. So if you don't force the body to breathe in, and you breathe out, and if you just stay there, just abide there, there will be a little pause of a few seconds, and then the body will naturally breathe in. That pause, that space between the breath, is called the lacuna. And when you sigh and let go and go into the lacuna, basically it's it's the stillness, it's the void, it's God. Basically, God is right there in between every breath, because it's like being off. When you go and let go of everything, it's like you kind of let go of yourself a little bit. And so it's like, it's just the stillness, just the void, just the universe, just now, it's just every isness. And if you just relax and abide and just be here now, just be here now in that relaxed, after the sigh, in the space between breaths. When you'll get good at it, you'll feel a presence, like a tingling aliveness. Eckhart Tolle talked about holding your hand out and just being aware of your hand from the inside out. You feel a tingling aliveness. It's the same tingling aliveness, but you feel it in your belly and chest. And as you breathe in, all you do is you just pay attention. Either if you haven't felt the tingling aliveness now, you just follow the breath. Just follow the breath in, stay conscious at the top, and then sigh again more gently, and then be here now and see if you feel the tingling aliveness. So you carry on breathing until you feel the tingling aliveness. As soon as you feel it, you put all of your attention and awareness on the tingling aliveness, because it's basically spirit, God, love, you, your soul. That's what it is. It's just the field of your being. And as you pay attention to it, what you give energy to grows, as you all know. The more you forget about the breath now, you're just thinking about tingling aliveness and you're just breathing naturally. The more energy you give that tingling aliveness, the more it grows. And basically it grows to fill you and surround you with a field of presence that is awake, basically. So, and what you do is you bring yourself back to peace. So it's a practice that you can do anytime, anywhere, while you're working, while you're having an argument with your partner, while you're driving, while you're on the computer. That's the beauty of this pathway. It's living meditation. Every practice is a practice you can do in the moment of a problem, as well as sitting on your own.
Can I ask a question?
When you come back to peace, yeah.
Do you still ever rest as awareness for short moments?
Balanced view, yeah.
Yeah. Do you still have that practice?
We both had a journey with Balanced View. So I did Balanced View when I was in India in 2006, 2007. And I immediately had lots of amazing experiences. But I also had read a bit of Dzogchen, and I already knew then that it had been borrowed from Dzogchen. and I didn't like the cult-like nature
Yeah, I
of it,
get
because
that.
they you know, and even at the end of the 12 inquiries I said, everything you say is true, but you do realize that this is the truth and there are other people saying it and you're not the only ones who know it. And they went, no, this is it. And I was like, oh, it's a cult. And I basically left, because the technique of resting as awareness is exactly what I just talked about, obviously, because there's only one way to reality. But and it does still work. I mean, there's only one truth. So all practices and all teachings bring you to the same place. Otherwise, they're not the real thing.
I agree. I mean, I see that as the mother of all spiritual practices. The Zodkin one, which they
but that's all I described. Exactly. All I described was that. It's just relax. Just relax. Just completely relax and just be there. And that's it.
You know what I realized? What I realized is that when we do that, when we really, really commit to this path of resting or whatever you want to call it, then this is how to make God do a happy dance. Like, if you want to make God do a happy dance, just like go into vacation mode, just like give it all up and just be like a child, just be. And then you've got Mother, Father, God doing a right old jig.
In this part, it's the phrase that Jeshua knows is that basically you must be born again as a little child to enter the kingdom of heaven. And it's about innocence. The word we use is innocence. It's empty-headedness and not knowingness.
Yes.
And it's basically being empty, like you said, that every instrument is empty. That's the point. It's supposed to be filled with music, with energy, with something. And it's that we think, when you think you are the one doing the things you're doing, you're an ego. You think you're the body, you think you're the ego, you think you're the controller. And then you have all the stress and worry of, am I good enough? What happens if people don't like me? What happens if I lose this or lose that? That's because you think you're the doer. When you surrender and you realize that it's all God and you're just a vehicle, it's the happy dance. Because basically, the way I put it is, my path is to live in the breath so God can live in the rest of me. Because that's what I experience. When I follow the breath and I just relax and basically disappear into the breath, my field is filled up with God. And it's like the happy dance is God. Okay, I can come out to play. I can use this body. I can say things I
can use this body.
Like I'm giving God a chance to be free in this realm. That's the happy dance.
That's right. That's exactly, you've articulated it. And then it's like we allow the spirit, we become one with the spirit. Our identity merges with all that is, with the spirit of all that is. And there's no kind of like separation. And I think I've really, really dedicated my life to that. I mean, obviously I have my moments, do you know what I mean? But generally I've dedicated my life to being that empty instrument. And it's really interesting. And I loved what you were saying earlier about, because I mean, I woke up this morning and even though I'm in this very, very peaceful, exalted state of consciousness, I still have human experiences. Like my partner died and that was a very, very upsetting experience for my human self, even though I know all the wisdom. I know he's with God. I know he's always with me. I know he's always with my heart. Like I know that, but that doesn't take away the fact that my human physical self wants a cuddle from him. Do you know what I mean? And that's really, really okay. And it's so funny because I was walking down the road today and I was like, because I don't rarely get triggered. I was like, this grief is really, it's like really getting in there today. Do you know what I mean? It's like poking at that little wound. And I was like, woohoo, because this is an opportunity, because I thought I've done so much healing. I've reached unprecedented levels of healing. And I'm like, wow, I get an opportunity to go even deeper. You know, and so even though today was a very uncomfortable day and it was a very upsetting day and I didn't feel good in myself, there was still that wisdom of like, this is really, really opening me up now to go into the father wound. Because with me, I never met my father. You see, I had an amazing relationship with my mother, but I never met my father. I mean, you were talking about that earlier, about how we're always looking for in our romantic partners. Like, what about we didn't have a dad? Do you know what I mean? And that has been my Achilles heel, that. And then I felt today, and I've done so much healing on that. Holy Jesus. I mean, I've devoted my life to healing that wound. Do you know what I mean? But today I could feel it. I was like, Liam going was triggering there was almost like tiny little sort of like sand, like grains of sand at the bottom of my there in my emotional body, that it was time for them to leave. You know what I mean? And it was the grief somehow was opening me up for that light. Exactly what you said. I completely had that experience today. Do you know what I mean? And I was so blessed to see it as a gift. And that is my prayer, that everyone sees it as a gift. You know, that when we do get triggered, this is an opportunity. I'm getting major goosebumps, but this truly is an opportunity for you to go to the next level of your healing. And today I was like, oh, surely I've arrived. I've not arrived at this flipping plateau of healing, God. Do you know what I mean? God's like, no, there's still a little bit more, Jen. And that's been
I've got bad news for you, Jen.
I've got
bad news for you. So well, Jeshua basically, obviously, Jeshua is out there with the ascended masters, you know, right in the front lines of surrendering and healing. He's been doing it for 2,000 years, right? And he jokes, basically, he goes, "You've got to remember, God is infinite. Yeah. You are infinite. There is no end. There's always more that can come up. But by that time, you don't see it as a problem. You literally see it as, oh, I can have more God, more opportunity to be even more awake." Do you know what I mean? So it doesn't feel bad, but it never ends. And
we're constantly expanding, you know, and it's like, and I talk a lot about fifth dimensional consciousness. So much of my teaching is about Christ consciousness being the fifth dimensional consciousness. I talk about the 0 point field, but we don't stop at the fifth dimension. The fifth dimension is the gateway to the 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th. And so we're constantly being stretched and we're constantly being expanded to hold a greater capacity of God. You know, and so every single time that we're triggered, we're just being stretched and opened to hold even more knowing, you know, even more truth, more bliss, more love, more authenticity, more transparency, more realness. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, it's and I think for our listeners, if there's anything that you can take away from this, I'd love you to take away the importance of a spiritual practice, committing to a spiritual practice, finding a spiritual practice that inspires you, that you're actually going to do, and realize that when you do get triggered, it is a gift. It is a gift from your higher self, and it is an opportunity for you to transmute an important aspect of your shadow, which has been basically like lurking in your unconscious, and it's been sort of like pulling on you on an unconscious level, but now it's been exposed, it's been triggered, it's no longer going to have that pull on you. So it's something to celebrate. So I really, really pray that all of you listening can, every time you get triggered, when someone pisses you off, go, oh yeah, woohoo.
And can I add one thing to that, Jen? Obviously, completely agree. And the other thing I'd add, in the world that we're living in, so COVID, I'm sure your listeners and your viewers probably are of the same opinion and view on COVID. But in the same way that you know, it's wonderful to learn to see your triggers as gifts. Can't hear what you can't feel, and apply that to COVID. So this, you know, this fast, let's face it, this dangerous, deadly, horrible fast can also be seen, and this is how I see it.
Paradox, speaking, don't even use the C word. It flags up. Yeah.
Beg your pardon.
It's all right.
Beg your pardon. Yeah, no, I get you. The Rona is what I generally say when I'm trying not to get banned. Is that good? Yeah. So yeah, seeing the Rona, seeing it. By the way, those of you who don't know, it's a badge of honor. Those of us who post on Facebook about stuff, it's like, how many times have you been banned by Facebook and how long? You know, it's like, it's a badge of honor because obviously you must be saying something worth saying if you're being banned. But seeing the Rona as your own creation, that's the first thing. Again, in this path, it's always about radical responsibility, cosmic responsibility. It's all my creation. It's all within the field of my consciousness, which is infinite. And it is about, so I created COVID, and obviously there's all the aspects that are anti-human and, Rona, there are all the aspects that are anti-human and are negative in all the ways that we know. And it is exactly what we needed as a species.
That's such a beautiful perspective.
just because before it happened, for 6 months on Facebook, all I was saying was, guys, you are afraid. You're a scared little boy and a scared little girl, and you just think you're an adult. It's all fear. Fear is the only problem, and owning and acknowledging your fear-based decisions. There's only two choices in every moment, fear or love. And I promise you, most people, 90% of the time, they're choosing fear. And I just kept saying that because it was so obvious to me as I was learning not to choose fear, how much I was choosing fear before and how much everyone else I knew was choosing fear. As I was learning not to do it, I could see how bad it was everywhere else. And I just kept saying, guys, we've got to walk through our fears. We've got to heal our fear and pain. We've got to deal with our wounded child. It's going to tear us apart. And then COVID hit. And two things have happened. There are the people who believed it, who obviously their fear has been manipulated. The fear-mongering, fear-mongering. That's all we've had. And all the people who were in fear, just as I said would happen, their fear drove them to wearing masks and putting their children in masks and all this rubbish. And then there's the other side, the truthers who know about Big Pharma, who know about the Illuminati, who know about all this stuff and know that it's 1984 and Great Reset, who are afraid of 1984 and the Great Reset. They're afraid as well, and they were afraid before. Everyone was afraid. Unless you were awake, you were afraid. It's that simple. The human state of consciousness is separation and fear. We're not unified, we're not enlightened, we're normal human consciousness, and normal human consciousness is fear. And I was saying it, and then exactly what I knew would happen. So we had two camps that look like they're against each other, but from my point of view, they're the same. You're either afraid of the Rona, because, oh, the bogeyman is coming to get us, or you're afraid of the people behind the Rona. Everyone out there who is not awake is afraid of one of those two things. When you're awake, you realize this is my creation. I created it in order to remember that it doesn't matter what happens outside me. I always have the free will power, sovereign power to choose love and peace in the face of being crucified, tortured, put in jail. Many masters have done this. And that is the sign of a master. The sign of a master is that nothing outside me can take my peace away or take my joy away or take my love away. And that's how I use COVID. It's like it makes me happier. It makes me more loving, because the misery and suffering that it's caused, the only way not to be affected by it is to wake up. It made me wake up because I don't want it affecting my peace. And before I was awake, it did, because it's conducting war on the human race, destroying our children's mind, turning them into psychopaths, blah, 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 blah. And I don't want that. I want to recreate a world where we live in heaven, the world I live in.
Can I ask a question? The only way I can
do that is to become awake. Yeah.
What's the situation in Portugal like?
It is, it's not as bad as the UK in some ways. In most ways, it's better than the UK. I left the UK in March last year when I could see what was happening, but mainly because land is cheaper here. It's cheaper to live the dream of living on the land and getting back to the earth and living in heaven. And so I came in more because land is more available and there are communities of people here. Basically, the Portuguese people are similar to the English people. Most people follow the rules and obey and do their stuff. It's actually easier not to wear a mask in a store in the UK because they understand exemptions. Here, they don't understand exemptions. However, it's a more of a Latin country and they're more easygoing about things in general. So it's not that bad, but ultimately, it's not going to happen because the earth is evolving, as you know, and the earth is going to burn off anything. By the way, this is the main reason to walk through your fear. What is actually happening, and I know Jen talks about this, what is actually happening, forget the Illuminati, is that the earth is evolving. The earth is healing and awakening. She wants to go to the next dimension. And as she does that, anything vibrating at the level of fear is going to get burned off like a virus. A fever is when your body burns off viruses. The fever of the earth going to the next dimension is going to burn off all fear. And it's good news, because if you're one of the fear mongers, you know, the people running the world, they're done. None of their plans are going to come to fruition. Genocide, you name it, they're done. They're going to get burned off. However, the people that they got into fear by fear mongering or scaring them into conspiracy theories, they will be in fear and they will get burned off too. However, it's okay. We have an infinite, we have eternity to remember that we're God, and we have free will. You can take as long as you want. All God is saying to you is, do you want to awaken now from this realm and go on to the other realms? Play with the angels, in other words. Do you want to awaken now in this lifetime on this planet, or do you want to awaken on another planet in another lifetime? That's it. No punishment, no bad. But if you continue to choose separation and fear, in other words, if you continue to choose not healing and awakening, if you continue to choose not to do a spiritual practice, not to devote your life to awakening, which most people don't, if you continue to choose that, you're going to get burned off with the Illuminati. Love you. Oh, I've been dying to say that.
Archie agrees. Don't you, Archie? That's a very intelligent dog there. He was waiting for that particular point. Yeah,
My
no.
man, Archie.
Yes. Yeah, no, I think I had a question to ask. So do you feel obliged to wear a bacterial diaper when you go out?
Yeah, in Portugal, basically, if I don't wear a face nappy, I can't go into the shops because they don't.
Really? They'll say, no, you can't come in.
They don't do it. A few times I've decided in my mastery, I'm going to make it so that I can go in without, and I've done it. I've just decided that on that day I wanted to prove that I could do it. But actually, like I say, I'm so much more relaxed. It doesn't matter. Pick your battles. If me not wearing a mask is not going to change what's happening with the Illuminati, no protest, no legal thing. Basically, this is what I want to say to my truther friends, the people who know how it works, know what's going on. What you've got to understand is the world is a mirror. Everything out there is a reflection or an externalization of the human ego and the human shadow. It's all us. It's all our consciousness. The Illuminati and the Satanists are literally your ego and your shadow pictured in the world. It's a mirror. They're just mirroring ourselves back to us, yeah? So to try and stop what's happening with the Illuminati and the Satanists by doing something is like trying to change your reflection in the mirror by reaching into the mirror. That's what you're doing. I don't tell people what to do. I tell them what they are doing. The world is a mirror. It's all human consciousness. It's all consciousness just reflected, projected out there. And all the bad guys are your unhealed shadow. That's all they are, and your ego. They do exactly what your ego does to your soul. Your ego controls, manipulates, tries to stop your soul from being free because it wants to keep control and it's afraid of dying. And they do exactly the same thing to the human race. The elites do exactly what the ego does to the soul. The elites do it to the human race. They're just, that's all they are. So if you want to stop the elites, stop reaching into the mirror. Stop protesting. Stop doing these things because it's a waste of your divine energy. It's not going to work. It doesn't work. You can't reach into a mirror and change what you look like. If you want to change what you look like and you're standing in front of a mirror, you take your hat off or you change your clothes. And that is awakening. That is what awakening is. I just took my clothes off and they changed. Now they don't bother me at all. I can wear a mask if I go into a shop. It doesn't bother me at all. I'm still at peace. I'm still happy. They can't take my joy away. Even if they had a concentration camp, they took me from this house and arrested me and put me in a concentration camp, I'd still be like this. That is what mastery is. I'd still be like this. There were people in the concentration camps in World War II, Viktor Frankl's book, who were like this. This is mastery. This is the only way to ever be safe. It's the only way to ever be at peace. And it's the only way to ever be able to help the world. You can't help the world while you're still projecting your ego and shadow onto it. You can only help the world when you stop putting your stuff onto it so that people like Bill Gates have to exist. You do realize that Bill Gates has come to us as an angel in order to represent our ego and shadow. They have to be here because we haven't healed. The earth, the sun, the very universe is begging you please stop projecting fear onto reality, onto heaven. We're painting fear and pain and shadow onto heaven. And the earth and the universe are asking us to please heal. And healing is loving yourself. It's not even if it's something bad that you're being asked to do. You're being asked by the angels, by God, by Christ, by Mary Magdalene. They're all asking the same thing. Unconditionally love and accept yourself so that you can heal your wounds and remember that you're God. That's it. That's all you're being asked to do. But I promise you, Jen, and this happens every time I say this, 90% of the people who hear this will go, yeah. And their egos will talk them out of it and they won't do anything. Sorry to say that, but it's true. It happens every time.
Won't do what?
Won't dedicate themselves to their awakening, their healing. They won't.
I'm banging on about it 24/7, Chris. I'm going on about it all the time to my community.
And so you know.
Yeah, no, I'm always reminding people. I say to people, you're not going to get anywhere without commitment. If you're not going to commit, just don't even bother. Just stay in your 3D ego. But when you commit, you got to really commit to every single day, to every single minute of every day, being committed to your practice. And I have been, and I am. And as someone that's worked with spiritual practice since 2012, it didn't take long for me to go into that. What balance do you call it again? Open intelligence. Right. I went into open intelligence, like boom, was in open intelligence. And then when you're in that vibration, enlightened consciousness, you don't need to take short moments because you're basically in it. And then you only take short moments when you have an affliction, when you have a moment of like being triggered or something like that. And so I say to people, it doesn't take long. Like it didn't take me long to stabilize. Do you know what I mean? But I was like, I approach everything of a spiritual nature as an Olympic athlete. I see everything. Do you know what I mean? I'm like, right, I'm gonna win that gold. I mean, it's only competition with myself, not competition with anyone else, but I'm gonna get there for me. And I am like an Olympic spiritual athlete. And I think that's
we used to call it, me and my friend Carly, we used to call it the Sadhu Olympics. The Sadhu Olympics.
Yeah,
because it's an Olympic competition.
Yeah, you have to have that approach. Otherwise, don't bother. Just stay in the 3D, stay in the ego land. Do you know what I mean? But if you really do want to experience transformation, then find a spiritual practice and commit to it. And just to start now, it's like, when's the best time to plant a tree? It was either 20 years ago or right now. Right now is the moment for you to commit to a spiritual practice. And I put this interesting quote, and it's like, hang out with enlightened people as well. Hang out with people that are very awake, because it's like we're all just like tuning forks. And so when we spend time with people that are at an exalted state of consciousness, it just naturally will just like lift us up. And it's the same for you. Like you are one of those people. You are the tuning fork that's lifting up everyone around you. So it's very beautiful. And I love what you said about because I haven't looked at it from that perspective, and I loved it what you said about the fact that I created Rona. You know, but if we could all have that view, it's so powerful, it's so empowering, because I think like it has been. I mean, obviously I've sailed through it, and I'm so lucky because my son doesn't go to college. Now, if he was to turn around and say to me, I want to go to college, I don't know how I feel about that, because I don't want him in that indoctrination camps. I don't want him in that conversation of the jibby jabs. Do you know what I mean? I don't. So that could be a bit of an issue for me. But I'm very lucky that my son's higher self is on board with this and is keeping him protected. He's just gone into hermit mode and he's on his Xbox, he's speaking to his mates, but we've moved to Brighton and he doesn't really have a crew here. But I think that's good, because a lot of the young people at the moment are very programmed. Like when you go out in Brighton, I don't know what it's like in Portugal, but all of the young people have bought into the narrative. Like 90%, I would say, have completely bought into the narrative. And there's this weird thing that's happened where's the rebellion of that generation? Somehow they think it's rebellious by rebelling against the truthers. That's where they're, you know.
A lot of it has to do with they've grown up with technology and the power of social media and technology. It's the best programming they've ever had. You know, so they had radio originally, then they had television. Television was like leaps and bounds better than any programming. They call it television programs, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
The best
Literally, they don't even hide
programming
it.
They don't even hide it up to that point. And then they had the internet and the web, which was powerful in itself, but social media, that, you know, that we know the evidence that and I know we're on it now, but everyone's on it. That's the point, you know, you have to be. But what it does to a young mind in terms of getting them to seek out a validation, a like or a share is basically out of validation. It's the opposite of spirituality. Spirituality is teaching kids that they are intrinsically beautiful, perfect children of God, that they lack nothing, that they're perfect, you know, one with spirit, don't need anything outside of them. That's the truth, and that's what you want to teach a child to make them healthy. What social media teaches the child is that your worth and your value is validated by how many people like your posts. And the amount of teenage suicides from social media, it's ridiculous when we look at it. So anyone who's grown up in that, their soul, basically, their connection to that part of them that is, I'm a sovereign being, no, that part that us older people have, with the emphasis on older when I talk about myself, a lot of the young generation, they've never had a chance to cultivate that, because from a very young age, they've been basically validated only by technology and their Facebook page, and that's where all their validation has come from. And if you don't get a good response from people on social media, you feel like shit, you're not good enough. And if you do, oh, I'm great now, and then you go up and down, up and down, up and down, up and down. So there's no center, there's no strength, there's no resilience. There's no, I don't care what the government says, that's BS. I won't say no, because actually I've met a few young people that see through it and are pretty on it. But yeah, the majority, I would agree with you, particularly in somewhere like Brighton that had already been infected by wokeness. Wokeness was basically the Trojan horse that undid our ability to see obvious BS in front of us, because woke just made any kind of, you know, there's a man and a woman, you know, there's two genders.
I know.
It just threw everything out, and so nobody can say anything anymore. Everyone, if you're white, you're a racist.
There's 500 genders apparently in the woke crew or something.
Of course there is, at least 500.
At least 500.
But I think that messed up young people's minds in terms of a mind virus, a very powerful and effective mind virus, neo-Marxism. And then on top of that, you got COVID, they had no chance. So yeah, I totally understand why that is the situation. And that makes it even more important why those of us who didn't grow up with social media and wokeness, you know, get our SHIT together. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And it pisses me off, like, living in Brighton, because it's all like gay mad, do you know what I mean? And everyone each to their own, but just keep it to yourself, do you know what I mean? And I'm just like, at the end of the day, it's just like this inverted flags. Everywhere you go is like the red at the top and the purple at the bottom. And
What's that? What does that mean?
Well, it's an inversion. It's satanic, because the crown chakra was meant to be at the top and the base chakra was at the bottom. So they flipped it and they've gone, oh, you know, and it's the same with the whole Baphomet, like the pentagram, do you know what I mean? And it's just like everywhere, and you see all these young kids and they're all wearing their like rainbow bags, and it's all like satanic bullshit. And I've just had enough. Like, it's absolutely OTT in this town. And it's like every shop's like, oh, we represent them. Oh, we represent the LGBT plus QRST bloody W. And
I just have to say, Jen, that when I left the UK, I was living in London. I'd already kind of woke up to wokeness. I used to live in Bristol. I used to live in Brighton. And those are two of the, I won't say worst, but
horrendously worse.
Two of the most woke cities in England. And then when COVID happened, I was like, I'm out of here. And my route meant that I had to stay in Brighton for a few weeks before we got the plane out.
Yeah.
And so I was living in Brighton for the last 3 weeks of, when was it? Early June last year. And yeah, I just saw all the young people were happily wearing masks. Realizations, actually. Part of it is, again, this generation and things like that, young people are growing up not able to, like boys are growing up not able to talk to girls. They're growing up socially awkward. They've had their brains programmed by porn. They've got swipe culture, hookup culture, they call it, where you see somebody fit, let's have sex. And you literally meet and go in it. So there's no courting, there's no talking, there's no dating. They don't date. And it's like, but worse still, it's like they've lost the mating ritual, the dance of a man and a woman, which is literally part of mating, part of having kids and propagating the species. It's gone. It's actually gone. And so part of them loving wearing masks is hiding. A lot of young people are happy to hide behind the mask. You know how people hide behind their phones? And back in the day, people hid behind their newspapers. It's staying safe in a little bubble. And the young people have adopted it. You know what teenagers are like? Teenagers don't want adults to know what they're thinking and what they're doing, right? Teenagers are super secretive. And it's great. I can wear a mask. And so I'm sure that the Illuminati, they knew about that, but they've adopted it so willingly. I noticed in Brighton when they didn't even have to wear them. And that, to me, it's like, I know that the ultimate end is going to be perfect, but I can't help but be more affected by the effect on the young, because
that's right.
We're all innocent, but they're innocent.
Yeah, that's it. That's what gets me. I'm cool. I'm cruising this. I was born for this.
Yeah.
But it's the young that's what gets to me. Not really, but a little bit. But the way I look at it is though, the way I've been shown is that we are on this ascension cycle. We are in this experience where the earth is ascending from the third dimensional matrix into the fifth dimensional Eden paradise. We are all on that individual personal trajectory. Now, there are many souls that are incarnated on this earth at this time that have not signed up for that ascension. They want to be controlled. They want to be slaves. They are choosing it. And who are we to judge? Like, that's their soul's evolution in this lifetime, is they want to say, if Boris says, guys, I want you to go outside your house at 8 o'clock and jump, they'll be like, yes, sure, Boris, how high? Do you know what I mean? And that's their choice. That's their sovereign choice. And so what my team showed me is that they have specifically chosen to not be on this particular ascension cycle. Now, it could be that traditionally it's been every 26,000 years that we have this alignment with Galactic Central. But what my team said, they said they won't have to wait 26,000 years. They'll have to wait 3,000 years. So it's not such a huge,
that's
long,
nice.
it's not such a huge, long 26,000 year cycle. But
you know what that's like? It's like when you go to prison, then you get time off for good behaviour.
Totally. And so, it's like, who are we to judge? At the end of the day, that's their choice. It's between them and God. Now, I know it's very, very difficult if it's someone that you love. And when it comes to my family, I've said to them, don't tell me. If you're going to have the jibby jibs, don't tell me. I don't want to know. I don't want to take on that stress, because at the end of the day, that's between you and your maker. I've given you the information, my stance. And if that's your choice, then I have to honor you and I have to respect you. But I actually don't want to, on some level, I just don't want to know, because I don't want to be sitting there worried about my family getting bloody symptoms from it. Do you know what I mean? But,
well said on the absolute. I was actually going to add when I said, I feel it more for children. And I was literally going to say exactly what you said, but their souls have chosen it. It's all soul choice.
Yeah, that's what chosen it.
It's also chosen.
And who are we to judge? And so we need to just step back, let people make their own choices, and trust that there is a divine plan here, but with the young people as well. And the way I sort of like resolve it with the young people is like, prior to them coming into their physical bodies, when they were sat at the feet of Mother, Father, God, they knew that this agenda, that this narrative was going to be happening in 2020 on Earth, and their souls still signed up for it, And I actually did a post about that, and I was like, wow, especially the little ones, they're so brave to come to this world at this time when they don't have control, but they're totally at the mercy of their parents' consciousness. Do you know what I mean? But so they're brave souls, and it's the same with the teenagers as well. And so when I see these adverse things happening, and I just think it's not an accident. Like, everything is planned with you and God. Like, it really is. This whole linear time thing, this is just like a time lag. Like it's all already happened on a different timeline. You know, we're already dead. Do you know what I mean? We already lived this life, and we're sort of like looking back. So we all just get lost in the program of like the Matrix and the third dimension.
Yeah,
but that's just the linear program. You know, you got to wake up from that.
Yeah. Jeshua's got a really, I love the way that Jeshua puts it, that understanding that we're already one, the atonement has already happened, it's already nothing to worry about, show's over. The way he puts it is that all that is happening in the universe is that one baby lay down in its crib and began to dream a dream of separation. In the moment that it dreamt the dream of separation, the light of God's love, the sun, came through the window and woke the baby up in the crib. End of story. That's all that's ever happened. The sonship, the world soul, God's creation, who we are, dreamt a momentary dream that we were separate from heaven, separate from spirit, separate from one, separate from God. And that dream is what we call the 15 billion years of the universe, since the Big Bang. That momentary dream in heaven is 15 billion years, this linear time thing you were saying. So the whole of human history and evolution and all the rest of it is in a single moment of a dream that we are all having. That's it. And in eternity, we are literally playing in heaven right now. And it's only as we've shrunk our consciousness now and identified with the third dimension and forgotten that, and can't, most of us, not you included obviously, but most people can't access the other dimensions. And so they've forgotten that they're in heaven, they've forgotten that they're eternal, and they've forgotten that everything is by choice. Everything they're experiencing in the third dimension is chosen by their soul to have a certain experience. Everything is just soul experience. The soul doesn't care. Now, you might hate the experience of being mugged, for example, violently, but your soul doesn't bother your soul. They want the experience of being mugged. And so the more and more we come to understand that our lives are being lived by our souls, not our egos. It's not about your ego, it's about your soul. The more we can just surrender and be okay with whatever actually is. You know, what actually is happening is okay with me because it's what my soul wants to happen. It's what God wants to happen. It cannot be anything else, otherwise I wouldn't be experiencing it. And that's where that peace comes from. You're not afraid of anything happening that you don't want anymore, and you're not craving and addicted to something happening that you do want anymore, because you've surrendered to God and you said, okay, God, whatever you want to happen, whatever you and my soul have concocted for me in this journey, I'll accept and I'll enjoy and I'll embrace and I'll appreciate.
Absolutely, Chris. That's very, very beautifully said. So we're coming up to an hour and a half now, and I think I'm going to round it up around here. But is there anything that you'd like to leave our listeners with? Any gems, any way that they can contact you? What's the best way? Like how? Because I loved it when you were on Facebook and you were like absolutely destroying the BLM narrative, destroying the convict narrative. I love that. I was like, go, Chris. I'm share that freaking post.
Well, that was, I saw that. Yeah, to be honest, I saw that as my duty, because as a black person, if you're a white person, and I knew lots of white people that saw through the BLM bullshit,
totally.
Yes, but if the white person says it, they get attacked by the mob. But it's much harder to attack me, so I just saw it as my duty to be a black person saying all this. So you can't tell me I'm racist because I'm saying it. So that's one of the things that but that was a phase, that was a phase, and I don't do it anymore because I feel the same way about BLM as I do COVID. I feel the same way. I studied all the pedophilia stuff, the worst stuff. I've studied it all. I know exactly what they're trying to do, genocide, blah blah blah, and I'm totally okay with it. I love Bill Gates. It's a strange thing, but I've come to that place with it. So I've got no interest in doing that kind of stuff. What I have got interest in doing is being a mentor to help you walk through the way of mastery, the way of the heart, the way of transformation, the way of knowing, if and only if your soul has chosen to awaken. So you can only do this work with people whose souls have chosen to awaken. So if your soul hasn't chosen awakening, great, have a good, enjoy the last few years on this one and then enjoy it on the next planet. But if your soul has chosen to awaken, what I've discovered, what I've realized is that there are lots of people here whose souls have chosen to awaken, but they don't listen to their soul. That's the biggest problem. Too many people too busy listening to this lunatic up here, and they don't listen to the one in here. Yeah. That to me is like that's where the most potential benefit for humanity is, in all the people whose souls came here to do a job, you know, to wake up and create heaven on earth alongside the earth, who aren't paying attention. They're so in their fear, they're so in their monkey mind, they're so in their bullshit, that they're not listening to their own soul. So if you're somebody that knows how to listen to your, because if you're not listening to your soul now, you're not going to listen to your soul when I'm talking to you. So I don't want to work with you. Love you, but I can't work with you. But if you're somebody that knows how to listen to their soul, and you know when you're being called to do something, or when you're being called to leave a relationship, or called to do a job, or called whatever, you know what guidance feels like, and you have the humility to follow the guidance that you're giving. I've given Jen a link to my Telegram group, which is the best way probably for us to get in touch, because Facebook does not like me. I've had people tell me they try to watch my live streams, and as they click on my thing, it takes them to some celebrity. I've had people tell me multiple times they cannot watch my live streams. I get shadow banned up the wazoo. So I'd rather give the link on Telegram, or you can reach me on Signal. You can send a message on Signal to 00351 964.
Say it again. I'm going to write it in the chat. What is it?
Thanks, Jen. 00351.
00351.
Yeah. 964.
964.
761.
761.
782.
That's Signal. Oh, 782.
And the last one, 782. Yeah, that's so basically you go to Signal, you put that number in, send a message to that number, it will be me. And if you're interested, I do have a mentoring group. But as I say, there's an expression: you must want enlightenment like a drowning man wants air.
Oh, I love that.
That is the truth. I can't help anyone that doesn't want it like me and Jen wanted it. You've got to want it. You've got to want to be a living God who can manifest their own reality, is always happy, not afraid of anything, feels capable of anything. You've got to want that. I mean, why wouldn't you? That's why you said you're Olympic. Why wouldn't you want to be the greatest being you can be? I don't get it. I just don't get it. Why would you not want that? But most people don't. Most people think they're small. Most people think they can't do this, can't do that, I'm not good enough. But if you know how to listen to your soul, and you want to the end to suffering, if you want an end to suffering, that's what it is. It's an end to suffering. Check me out on either Telegram or Signal. And one thing I'd like to finish with, Jen, if I may.
Sure. What
is my all-time favorite song, poem, and prayer? Okay. So my all-time favorite song and my all-time favorite poem and my all-time favorite prayer is one and the same. Okay. I'm just going to do it because it doesn't get enough props as far as I'm concerned. This should be, what do they call it? Blowing up on social media, man.
Yeah.
And it goes a little something like this. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restores my soul. He guides me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. And yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou anointest my head with oil. My cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Amen.
Amen. Oh, thank you so much, Chris. That's so beautiful and so powerful. And It's my deepest prayer that all of our brothers and sisters become aware of the flame of divinity that burns eternally in their hearts, that this world has tried to diminish, that this world has tried to hide, but it's there. There's still a spark. While you're still alive, there's still a spark. Do you know what I mean? And so you've got to get that spark and you've got to turn it into a flame. And how you do that is by working with incredible mentors that have attained that level, by committing to a spiritual practice, by surrounding yourself with this conversation, and by committing to becoming an Olympic athlete when it comes to all things spiritual. and that is my yeah, I just want everyone to know the truth, and this world has just tried to beat it out of us, but it's all bullshit, because the truth is love, and God is love, and love is eternal, and God is eternal, and that is the truth, and I'll be singing that hymn for eternity.
Likewise. Yay!
Yay! Okay, Mr. Paradox. Well, it's been wonderful having you. So I think we'll try to do this regularly if we can. Like once a month would be lovely. And I think it's just very good for us to just be in each other's vibration as well. It's very healing.
Great fun. Really enjoyed it. Thanks, Jen.
Yeah, me too. And we've had a beautiful, beautiful comments. And this will go out on YouTube, and I'll share it on all my social media platforms. And just please, everyone, share this video. You know, both me and Chris have been shadow banned on quite a lot of our social media. And so in order to counterbalance the algorithm, we need you to share it. Like, it's as simple as that. So thank you all so much for being here. It's been a wonderful live. And me and Chris are going to stay on the call. But we're just going to say goodbye to you, and we're just going to end this live stream. So thank you, everyone. God bless you all. One final announcement. I'm doing the 9/9 transmission. Please come to that. That's going to be on the 9th of September, and it's going to be it's going to be absolutely amazing. We're going to be sending a boost of courage to the divine masculine, but most importantly, we're going to be anchoring the Eden codes. We can't live in Eden unless we're living in Eden within our own frequency. And so the transmission is about activating the Eden codes within us. Very, very powerful. Highly recommend for everyone to come and take part in this global ceremony. So on that note, thank you so much. Isn't Chris amazing, guys? Go and check out his Telegram, check out his Signal, support him, show him love, share this video. Let's do this. Love you all.